Please be upstanding for the Mayor of Waverley, Councillor John Rubini.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I was invited to pray at this auspicious council meeting, one of my favorite verses came to mind. I often think of it when change is afoot, and it couldn't be more appropriate because we are newly back here in chambers. You'll see what I mean. It's from the Old Testament book of Isaiah. Forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. And by this, I do not wish to suggest that we forget any of the good work and sacrifice of Mayor John Rubini, far from it, but that we seem to be in a time of newness. There is this continuing and growing hope for our future after such difficult years. And so as leaders and for our mayor-elect, I've come to encourage you and to remind you that God is doing a new thing, even as we are doing a new thing here this evening in Waverley Borough through each of you. And he will make a way for you to enliven this place as you follow his call. So let us pray. Almighty God, we thank you for the generosity of time and service given by Mayor John Rubini. Will you bless his past efforts and let him feel your pleasure and presence through all he has done for this borough? Will you bless him personally with rest and all that you know he needs? Lord, we thank you for our mayor-elect. Will you go before him in all that he does and bless him personally as he takes on the mantle of leadership, as he honors this place and you, Lord, by giving of himself in service. And we thank you, Lord, for this borough, its people, its leaders, and its physical beauty. Will you make us mindful of those growing in need? Will you make us proactive in the protection and nurturing of your creation? And loving God, we pray for this meeting tonight. Will you draw each together in one heart and mind? And may you direct us to the welfare and benefit of the good people of this place, as we offer up our creativity, innovation, and rational abilities to your good purposes here. Amen. I've been told to sit here until you guys all go out. I'm just going to do what Louise says, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. You may be seated.
So we'll now start the meeting. Thank you very much. Please may I ask, Robin, are there any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've received apologies from councillors Steve Cossa, Simon Deere, Brian Edmonds, Jan Floyd Douglas, John Gray, Val Henry, Peter Martin, Stephen Mulliner, and Anne-Marie Rosamond.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. May I now go on to item number 2, which is the main event of the evening, the election of the mayor. The mayor call for nominations, please. Can I have a nomination for mayor? Councillor Follows.
It's my honour to nominate Councillor John Ward for the position of Mayor of Waverley.
Thank you. Have we a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Goodrich. Are there any other nominations? I see no hands raised. Are there anybody else who wishes to speak? I believe Councillor Clark wishes to say. Councillor Follows first.
Mr. Mayor, honoured guests, members, good evening. May I first of all take this opportunity to thank you for your service, Mr. Mayor, over this past year, and to say how wonderful it is to be back here in this place for the first time in so long. Mr. Mayor, I rise this evening to propose your successor, and it is my great honour to propose my colleague, and for these last few years, to borrow a word from Councillor Palmer's side of the House, comrade in arms, Councillor John Ward. I first met John on the backbenches here at Waverley in 2017, when I sat with all of the other turncoats and rebels, shall we call us, and then again during John's tenure as chair of Housing ONS, widely known as one of the very few committees that would actually finish reliably on time. I think by the time we had dealt with a certain planning councillor from Oxfordshire, John, there was a possibility that if we did end up having to work together, we might do a fair job of it. Councillor Ward has had an extremely successful and varied time in local government, first as a Conservative and more recently as a Farnham resident, and he has held a great many roles, many of them more than once. Most recently, of course, he was my direct predecessor as leader of this council, and he has also previously been leader and mayor of Farnham on several occasions and served with distinction on more than one committee, and as chair on many more. Now, when John stepped down as leader, the executive presented him with a gavel, and I know certainly all of the executive members here hope that that might be deployed when you take up the hot seat. But it came with a stand and with an engraved plaque. And I took 3 calls from the supplier to get 2 plate changes because they simply could not fit all of the roles and all of the service that Councillor Ward had undertaken in his time as a local councillor. But we did get there in the end, I think. But that says a lot about John, and it says that public service is at his core, and whenever there has to be a job done, he'll step up. And in some cases, those tough jobs that simply nobody else will do. Now, I'd like to conclude with a short point about the last 3 years. Despite a great deal of assumption and rumour from many people inside and outside this place, and I'm sure I wouldn't be telling tales out of school to state, that there's never actually been any kind of written document or written agreement between myself and John. There has only been a firm word of honour. The election of mayor, as you yourself, Mr. Mayor, know well, is a solemn and serious duty. Mr. Mayor, honoured guests, members, my colleague, Councillor John Ward, is a man of his word, a man of honour, and one who will take the role of mayor as a solemn duty on behalf of this council and the people of Waverley. And it is my honour to propose him tonight. Mr. Mayor, I believe I have a seconder who wishes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, as follows. Councillor Goodrich.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors, ladies and gentlemen, can I firstly thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your year, and to also welcome Councillor Munro into the chamber again. I'm very pleased to second Councillor John Ward's nomination as mayor. This will be a unique experience for me to be seconding a proposal put forward by Councillor Follows. Seriously, it is a great privilege to do so, as I've known John since he joined the council. John has gone into the local government experience, and I want to concentrate on the man. Paul failed to mention John's early political experience when at the age of 9, while living in the United States, he campaigned for Richard Nixon. John and I have something in common in that we both went to boarding schools in the Cinque Ports in Kent. John was at Sandwich and I was in Dover. And I don't know, John, whether you cycled round near Sandwich and came across the famous road sign, which to the right said Sandwich and to the left pointed to a small village called Ham. And it's quite well known. Having graduated in mining engineering from Sheffield University, he was then involved in fossil fuels. I don't want to upset the Greens on this council, but John first worked down coal mines in Yorkshire and Durham before getting a job as a geophysicist in the oil industry, working in the North Sea and the Middle and Far East, finding oil. He left the oil industry as a senior vice president to become a financial advisor. A pity that, as we need more oil in the world to combat the current high oil prices. I have known most of the mayors since the council started in 1974, and I think I can say that you will be the first mayor to be a qualified scuba diver, as well as being a good underwater photographer. However, I have a warning for anyone who has shares in cruise companies. The share prices are likely to fall when John and Gillian have to curtail their cruises they go on due to the pressures of the mayoralty. I also have a second warning to councillors in that none of us will get away with incorrect points of order at full council meetings, as John knows the Constitution well, and I suspect he will enforce it. John is also a keen bridge player and is a tournament director, and also, sadly, a lifelong supporter of Arsenal Football Club. He also enjoys his golf if he can find the time. Behind every successful man is a surprised lady. Gillian has been married to John for the same length of time as this council has existed, i.e. since 1974, and they have two children, Marcus and Gemma, who don't live far away. Gillian is very active in the local community, being on many local committees based in Farnham, as well as singing in the local choir. She's also a trustee and vice chairman of 7 care homes. Clearly, John and Gillian are thinking ahead for the future. I know that Gillian will enjoy the experience of being the mayoress. In my opinion, and it is an opinion that I respect, you will both be a great credit to this council as mayor and mayoress. And therefore it gives me great pleasure to formally second the nomination for John Ward to be our mayor for the ensuing local government year 2022 to 2023. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Goodrich. I understand we have 4 other speakers who'd like to speak. So first of all, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening. I first met John Ward just over 3 years ago when I was a candidate for the Recklesham and Rowledge ward in Farnham. But who's to blame for that? Well, if we go back to 5 p.m. on the 2nd of April 2019, my phone rings, and on the other end of the line is Councillor Jerry Hyman. Now, Jerry is blamed for a number of things, but this is the top of my list. And after several previous attempts, Jerry finally convinces me that it would be a good idea to stand as a councillor in the forthcoming borough elections. I said, "When do you want me to complete the paperwork?" He said, "I'll be round your house in 20 minutes. I said, "What's the rush?" He said, "The deadline's tomorrow morning." Nothing new there, Jerry. So whilst we were filling in the various application forms, he could detect my concern about the amount of time I might be required to spend as a councillor. So he said, "Don't worry about the workload, Peter. You only have to attend council 6 times a year. So it's going to be a walk in the park." However, that was before John Ward came on the scene. No sooner than I'd overcome the shock of being elected, I was summoned by our group leader to attend his grand mansion on Recklesham Hill to discuss subjects such as political proportionality and representation on committees. After only a few minutes of conversation, I could tell that John was clearly born with a full set of silverware in his mouth, a silver spoon and a matching silver tongue. The definition of a silver-tongued person states, someone who has the ability to speak in such a way that makes other people do what they want them to do, and sometimes to believe it was their idea in the first place. So here I stand, 200 committee and executive meetings later, and there you sit, John, about to be adorned with a gold chain and fine ermine-lined robes. I can't help but appreciate the irony of it all. But John, seriously, I also appreciate the support you have given, not just to me, but to many other members in this chamber this evening who were elected for the first time in 2019. So John, your promotion from silver to gold is well earned. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you very much. First, I would like, on behalf of the Labour Group, to thank John Rubini for an exceptionally harmonious year under his chairmanship, under his mayorship. The politics can be unnecessarily fractious, and his good humour and measured style has had a great deal to do with the good atmosphere that has generally characterised our meetings. I hope that he will look back on the year with real, well-earned satisfaction and pleasure. I won't repeat what my colleagues have so eloquently said about our new mayor, but I'd like, on behalf of the Labour Group, to add my voice to the welcome. I was slightly surprised as an innocent virgin councillor to immediately have the honour of serving alongside him in the executive, and even more surprised, it was a pleasure. His blend of incisive leadership and subtle wit made him the ideal leader of the new Rainbow administration. Of course, he is now putting his useful Rainbow days behind him and becoming non-partisan. And I look forward to his bringing the same qualities to steering our debates on that basis. Now, I see the Home Secretary this morning has proposed that volunteer police should be issued with tasers. And I feel our mayor would appreciate one as well, so he can deal with any of us who attempt to speak for more than 4 minutes. But even without a taser, I feel sure that he will keep us all on the straight and narrow. And I look forward very much to the coming year under his guidance.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. If I could now call on Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I endorse Councillor Palmer's thanks to our outgoing Mayor, John Rubini, and representing the Green Party, following the entreaty of Councillor Goodridge, I am obliged to say, I think, that when I joined the executive in May 2019, I wondered whether I would be capable of greening Councillor John Ward as someone who has, as Councillor Goodridge has pointed out, worked in the fossil fuel industry throughout his career. Perhaps 3 years on from that, I'm still wondering, but I do believe that he may not have taken a giant leap, but he's certainly taken a jump, I think, in my view, often going as far as wearing a green cravat at council meetings, but I must hasten to add, seriously, leading by example and leading from the front, as a former leader of this council, driving his electric vehicle and entreating others to do likewise. I can say genuinely that actually this is a man who listens, and as such often has an open mind, and he is an excellent chairperson, therefore ideally placed to take on the role of mayoralty. Now, personally, not generally being someone who is drawn to the pomp and ceremony of mayoralty, I can recognize somebody who would be extremely good at carrying out the role. And I would certainly place Councillor Ward in that category. After a year of sitting on the dais at council meetings held in the Wilfred Noyce Centre, wearing flamboyant socks, he can now go the whole hog and wear all the regalia of mayoral office. But we know that the role of mayoralty goes beyond the pomp and ceremony, and it does genuinely extend to working, supporting, nurturing, and listening to the wider community. And I know no man better placed to be the embodiment of this notion, a kind of organ of the people, to use one of John's phrases. He is a man who seriously is both well-liked and well-respected in the community at large, and whose stentorian tones will serve him well when he attempts to keep us in check, perhaps without the use of a taser, as the chair of full council meetings. Thank you.
And Councillor Williams. Councillor Potts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And if I may, before I talk about Councillor Ward, I'd like to say a few other brief words. And first of all, to thank you for your hard work and endurance, your meeting endurance. I think that's the best term to use during your year, and wish you a very well-deserved rest, certainly from some of the committees now. And secondly, following on from some of the other comments, to welcome my new ward mate and fellow councillor, Councillor Munro, back to the council chamber. I look forward to us both working together for our residents and the community of the villages of Frensham, Tilford, Dockenfield and Churt. So now to move on to the real reason we're here tonight, and that's to welcome Councillor Ward. And I just know from past experience that he really will make not only a superb mayor, but an extremely good chairman of all those meetings that we have to look forward to. As it's already been said, he's had his apprenticeship, for want of a better term, representing Farnham on 2 occasions as the town mayor. And my partner Mike and I were privileged to work with him and Gillian on the 2nd occasion when Mike was his deputy. And I can tell you, the role is hard work, but Councillor Ward really did excel. So I know he will here in Waverley. Now, during the past 12 years, I've known the mayor-elect. We've both, I think it's fair to say, held some very strong and occasionally even slightly opposing views. Now, I did say I wouldn't be controversial this evening, so don't worry, John. But I think overall, what is really important, and as I sat and reflected over this, we've actually always managed to find ways to work constructively together. And one of the real times that I found that to be so, and I think a real mark of the character and leadership of Councillor Ward, was during the early months of the pandemic, something none of us had ever experienced before. And it's true to say that we did all that we could to set aside party politics and to work across party for the good of our residents and our communities. And I think that that period, as I say, clearly demonstrated to me the hard work and additional dedication of all our councillors and our council officers, but the work of John, Councillor Ward, at that time as leader of the council, should never be underestimated. And as a result of that, and that alone, I have absolutely no hesitation in congratulating him and wishing him and Gillian a really good, successful year as Mayor and Mayoress of Waverley. I really do think you will do the role proud and enjoy, both of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potts. Is there anybody else wishes to speak? Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I would like to echo the thoughts of my fellow councillors in saying, thank you very much for all your service. You have been a kind, good-humoured and very generous mayor at what has been another very difficult year for this borough and its residents. And I would like to welcome the mayor-elect, John Ward, to the role for next year. And I just wanted to say just a few words. It's already been mentioned about John's colourful socks, but most people know he's also got an extensive range of colourful ties. And this also extends to cravats, of which several appearances have happened on Zoom calls. You may or may not know that cravats were originally worn by members of the military in the 17th century, according to Wikipedia, that is. This made sense as John is meticulous and like things to be in order. A bit more searching around, and I found that the cravat had become synonymous with a particular type of gin quaffing, yacht sailing, and smooth talking rogue. This didn't seem like John at all, although he is partial to the odd cruise. He probably sits more comfortably in the famous cravat-wearing group, ranging from the quick-witted and erudite Nicholas Parsons to the suave David Niven, and far more recently, Orlando Bloom. This is more like it. John enjoys a pun, is charming, and like Orlando, relishes the high seas, even perhaps the Caribbean. I think this gives us a flavour of the type of mayor that John will be. He'll obviously also love wearing the flamboyant robes, and we might catch a glimpse of a cravat and colourful socks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Townsend. Is there anybody else wish to speak? In that case, without any other nominations, I will go on to the vote, please. So I will start with, is that agreed? Thank you. I hereby declare Councillor John Ward as the new Mayor of Waverley. Well done, John.
Thank you, John.
Please rise whilst the Mayor leaves the chamber. There will now be a short break whilst the Mayor robes. Councillors and guests, please rise to receive the new Mayor of Waverley, Councillor John Ward.
Have you got the? Thank you. Right, John Ward, hang on, having been elected, glasses are a terrible thing sometimes, having been elected to the office of Mayor of the Borough of Waverley, hereby declare that I take that office upon myself and that I will duly and faithfully fulfill the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. I undertake to observe the code as to the conduct which is expected of members of Waverley Borough Council in the performance of my functions in that office. Signed by me this 17th day of May, 2022. Please be seated, everybody. Right, make sure I'm reading you the right speech. Fellow councillors and members of the public, hang on, let me go. It seems to be the year's hottest day. So let's hope that that's a precursor to a warm and happy year for us all. I'm immensely proud to have been elected to this, prestigious office, but listening to the speeches earlier, I did wonder if they were describing someone else. So eloquent were they. However, I'm now a bit fearful that I might not be able to live up to your expectations, but I promised that I should do my very best. I sincerely thank my proposer and seconder for making this nomination, and those many others who so kindly pledged their support. Thank you for not having a recorded vote. One is often advised to tell a joke to break the ice. However, I'm sure you'll be all terribly relieved that, having listened to the early eloquent speeches, I feel such a degree of warmth in here, which is not just the weather, there'll be no bad joke. Having been elected, I would like to show you all the gavel and its engraved plaque that was referred to earlier. I will treasure that, and I do note that they engraved the office of mayor on it a year ago, just to make sure that it didn't go back. However, there is one sad part about it, is that I am convinced that you councillors are going to be so eminently behaved in this council that I should rarely have the opportunity to wield it. Hopes run high. After the lockdown, as a result of this terrible pandemic, it's really good to get back here into our home in this council chamber. And it seems that more and more societies and institutions are returning to having meetings face-to-face, at which they want the mayor to be present. I therefore hope to be able to represent this borough in a wide range of places, both within the borough and outside. My sincere sympathies go to my predecessors, whose ability to get out and about during their mayoral years was savagely curtailed. However, we must also remember that infection rates are still high, and be considerate and supportive of those whose vulnerability gives them cause for concern. Waverley is a wide-flung borough, having 21 parishes, with no obvious nucleus, which makes organising events sometimes a little bit difficult. But it has its 4 main centres of population, each with its own mayors or chairs.
who are rightly fiercely proud of the areas that they represent. I know that, I've been there. When I was first a town mayor, someone asked me, what's the theme of your year? I hadn't really thought about it, to be honest, but I immediately answered, good communications. This has stayed with me as I am a firm believer that in consensus politics and that good communications between protagonists enables even the fiercest political debate to be conducted in good humor. And I'm sure you'll help me out by doing that during my year. To avoid confusion when I travel around the borough, I do intend to be very communicative to my fellow mayors so that we don't both roll up at the same place, hoping to cut the same ribbon. Too late, I have just discovered things that were referred to earlier, that this magnificent getup and this wonderful jabot completely obliterate the lovely tie that I was expecting to wear for this evening. That is my sole disappointment in being elected to this office. Thank you all for doing it, and I promise I will do my very best. It now gives me great pleasure to call for nominations for Deputy Mayor for this forthcoming year. Councillor Williams.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Penny Rivers.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to second Councillor Penny Rivers.
Thank you, Councillor Liz Townsend. Just to check, Councillor Penny Rivers, are you prepared to accept the job if they nominate you?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Then Councillor Williams, I assume you wish to speak. The floor, or at least the microphone, is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It does give me great pleasure to nominate Councillor Penny Rivers as Deputy Mayor of Waverley. And as I said earlier, I'm not somebody who is particularly drawn to pomp and ceremony. And in that, in that I see the role of mayor as somewhat akin to that of a butterfly. At the end of the year as deputy mayor, they emerge from the chrysalis in all their colourful finery, as we have seen, Mr. Mayor, you, Councillor John Ward, emerging from the chrysalis this evening. Then flitting from one community group to another, nurturing them, reminding us that there is sunshine around us, spreading the pollen across the borough, and then resting their tired wings at the end of the year in the knowledge of a job well done. But the mayor also chairs full council meetings, which I think is probably where the analogy falls down. Less of a butterfly, but as entomologists amongst us would no doubt recognize, more that of a diabolical ironclad beetle, which is, entomologists tell us, is the creature with the toughest exoskeleton in the world. But moving on from that, having lived in Godalming in the 1980s and 1990s before moving away, I came back again in 2007 and recognized that Penny is now an intrinsic part of Godalming and an intrinsic part of Waverley. Originally from Jamaica, Penny Rivers identifies closely with the many Windrush generations, having been born and spent her formative years in Kingston, Jamaica, a child of the Windrush generation, but white. And being acutely aware of white privilege, the colonial legacy, and those issues that emerged recently around the Black Lives Matter movement, Penny is somebody who identifies and works tirelessly for the oppressed and disadvantaged. Ukrainians freeing the horrendous onslaught that their country faces. The LGBTQ plus community, Palestinians, refugees, and oppressed people everywhere. And with her work to support the disadvantaged in our community in Waverley, Penny has constantly been an indefatigable advocate for social justice and peace. And there will be not a single person in this council chamber or in Waverley who does not see Penny as a woman who truly cares. She will provide an excellent support for John Ward during his mayoral year. And it is not that she lacks experience of the mayoral role herself, in that she has been town mayor of Godalming 3 times over. 3 times Godalming mayor, only to have her last mayoral year extended for 2 years as a result of the peculiar circumstances of the pandemic. So somebody who is well versed in the role. So going back to my original analogy, she has much experience of metamorphosis from a political to a non-political role. And as a humble caterpillar myself, I'm delighted to nominate Councillor Penny Rivers for the first stage of her metamorphosis over the coming year to enter the chrysalis phase as Deputy Mayor, in the hope and anticipation of her emerging as a fully fledged butterfly, ready to take the helm of the newly elected Waverley Borough Council in May 2023. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Townsend, do you wish to speak? Silly question, I know.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, to be honest, I can hardly follow Councillor Williams' wonderful speech. I will be brief, but I was delighted to be able to second Penny's nomination. I think she'll be a fitting yin to John Ward's yang. She's a hugely popular local councillor and a much valued colleague who's never happier than when she is fighting for a cause to support those in our society who are underrepresented. I know she will be ably supported in her role by Paul and by the very proud Riverlets, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, who no doubt will be celebrating heartily with her on receiving this honour. She is a voice for those without a voice and will bring a huge generosity of rainbow spirit to the role of Deputy Mayor, as well as a keen sense of fairness, equality and dignity. I wish Penny all the very best in her year ahead.
I have indications to speak from Councillor Follows and Councillor Palmer. Councillor Follows.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and may I first offer my congratulations to you on your election this evening. I rise to speak, I'm sure we hope, be sure to be glad briefly, in support of the election of Councillor Penny Rivers to the post of Deputy Mayor of Waverley. I've had the honour of proposing Councillor Penny Rivers to the first of her 2 most recent terms as Mayor of Godalming, where she served as Mayor for those 2 years during the pandemic, in a role that she served as the heart of our community in Godalming during a time that most of us will not soon forget. Both here and in Waverley and in Godalming, you have often been our conscience, our compass, and you have been a progressive and a leader of progressives wherever you are at all times. And it's my great honour to support you this evening. Thank you.
Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, and I add my congratulations on your hard-fought victory. I'd just like briefly to add the congratulations of Councillor Williams and myself as the Labour group to our new Deputy Mayor. We value her for her warmth, for her idealism, and for her kindness. And I cannot think of a better choice to carry forward the position into the future. We wish her every happiness in her new role.
Do any other councillors wish to speak? Now, the big question, are there any other nominations? Well, I'm very pleased about that. I therefore declare that Councillor Penny Rivers is duly elected as Deputy Mayor for this next council year. Having just got up to the dais, I'm now going to come down from on high to invest the new Deputy Mayor, my Mayoress, and the Deputy Mayor's consort. And I will also like to make a presentation of a small gift of appreciation to Councillor Rubini for his past services. Mayor's consort. Sorry, we only get a minute. John. I don't even know what it is. Here is a, what's this, a reasonable size gift. I mean, they could have got a big one, but a reasonable size gift. Thank you for all you've done, John. I think there's something to that. I think there's something to that. The Deputy Mayor will now read her declaration of office.
I, Penny Rivers, having been elected to the office of Deputy Mayor for the Borough of Waverley, hereby declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfill the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. I undertake to observe the code as to the conduct which is expected of members of Waverley Borough Council in the performance of my functions of the office.
The Deputy Mayor is taking over already and would like to say a word or two.
Yeah, of course. May I just take this opportunity to thank Councillor Williams, Councillor Liz Townsend, Councillor Follows and Councillor Palmer for their very kind words and in proposing me as Deputy Mayor. And my thanks to all members here present for confirming the proposal. And I will certainly do my best to support our new Mayor, John Ward, during this civic year 2022 to 2023. Thank you all.
Right, the next item on our agenda is a vote of thanks to the retiring mayor, and I believe that is in the hands of Councillor Merriweather.
Certainly is. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And my warmest congratulations on your election, although apparently now it's your metamorphosis, but we'll come to that. Mr. Mayor, honoured guests and fellow members, our retiring mayor, Councillor John Rubini, was elected just over a year ago in the midst of a lockdown in a virtual Zoom annual meeting with only 7 other persons actually physically present in this chamber. And as we meet together here now for the first time since then, it's not only fitting, it's splendid to have been able to see John in his full regalia up on the dais to start the meeting. Our odyssey back here from Zoom has been via the Wilfred Noyce Centre and the Godalming United Church. The elements have challenged us with their own conditions, and we've managed to contrive some challenges of our own. But whether the atmosphere in the room has felt red hot or icy cold, in any sense of the words, John has chaired our meetings impartially and with a polite but nonetheless effective authority. And although it is possible that he's wondered occasionally if he'd need to draw more than he'd expected to on his years of experience as a crime prevention officer to keep us all in order. John's typically modest about all of his charitable and community activities and what he's managed to accomplish during his mayoral term, which of course is only a fraction of the tireless work he and Jackie have done over the many years and will continue to do so. But COVID's not the only challenge John's faced in going about his work this year. For example, his mayoral blog of his mucking out of the Hyde-style hedgehogs is curiously silent about him actually being bitten by one of them. And likewise, I'm told of another occasion when he did try to wing it with his own travel arrangements to visit a care home, and how he somehow managed to deliver himself to a block of flats in Hazelmere rather than the intended Cedar Court in Cranley. But on a brighter side, I also hear that his time as mayor has allowed him to reconnect with his past, both as an apprentice in Farnborough or with former colleagues from the police service, where those few who aren't themselves in local government have apparently popped up almost everywhere else, including one who's now a Royal Close Protection Officer. But despite the frustrations of the COVID protection measures, John's success in supporting his charities and our community are all the more laudable because of them. He and Jackie have made and will continue to make a formidable team. So, Mr. Mayor, it's truly an honour for me to propose this vote of thanks to our retiring mayor, Councillor John Rubini. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I understand Councillor Davison wishes to speak and second. I'll get new bifocals, Specsavers tomorrow. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes. Councillor Merriweather said a great deal about John, and it was absolutely correct. As I said a year ago, there really are two jobs. There's a chairing job and there's a public relations job. And John has done the chairing job in very difficult and changing circumstances. We had Zoom and then we had separated meetings and now we have meetings here. And he's done it very well. He's been a calm anchor to the council. And I think he's done a first-class job. And as far as his charities go, I think he's been thoughtful in choosing his charities, the Place to Be in Hazelmere, Skillway, and the Hightstyle Animal Sanctuary. So again, a lot of good work being done there. So well done, John. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Follows.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to briefly offer my thanks on behalf of the council's leadership and administration to Mr. Mayor, my apologies, Councillor John Rubini. You've been a fantastic sounding board to numerous members of the executive and to myself, particularly on Tuesdays when I've run into you. And I suspect, like a fine wine, we'll reflect upon your time as mayor as great relief for the minor tyranny I'm sure that will follow with Councillor John Ward's role as mayor, which I'm sure we're all looking forward to with great eagerness. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Coburn, while I debate a point of order.
Can I first of all add my congratulations to you, Mr. Mayor, on your whatever. I don't know quite what you say, voting. What am I trying to say? I'm sure you will have an excellent year, whatever the word I'm looking for, to have you elected to your role as mayor. It'll come as I'm driving home. Fellow councillors and honoured guests, it gives me great pleasure to add my thanks to Councillor Rubini for his difficult year as mayor. I don't think there's any former mayor in this chamber who didn't think it was one of the best years of their lives. It was just eye-opening in so many ways because you did go so far, you saw so many little corners of the borough you didn't even know existed. And I know from people I've spoken to, certainly in Farnham, but also in the other areas, just how much your visits have been appreciated and your interest. I'm sorry, like everybody else has said, that your activities were slightly curtailed by COVID, but when you did get out and about, you did exactly what the mayor should do. So I would like to add my thanks to you and of course to the indomitable Jackie for your hard work during this very difficult but very successful year. Thank you very much.
Any other councillors wish to speak? In that case, I call upon Councillor Rubini to give us a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Seems strange to stand this end instead of the middle, but there we are. And I must say the seat isn't as comfortable as one you're sitting on, but there we are. Anyway, I'd like to thank Mark very much for your kind words, and of course, Councillor Nicholson for saying a few more, and all those who have just spoken. Thank you, Councillor Coburn. Unfortunately, yet again, the year has been blighted by COVID, as has been said, with many events being cancelled and most people's activities restricted. We were fortunate that recently things improved, so I was able to spend extra time with other mayors across the county and, of course, time in the borough. Some events have stood out for me, and they mostly involve the elderly and the young. For example, I will always remember my visit to a Place to Be youth club and Skillways, which I'm sure you know at Farnham. Differently, of course, was cleaning up poo from hedgehogs at the Hydestyle Animal Hospital and rabbits and chicken. They do smell too. And it's something I will always remember. I am hoping, in fact, that I can continue to highlight and raise money for these really deserving charities. I visited many care homes and community buildings across the borough, even the one I went to the wrong place in. I got there eventually. I greeted Princess Anne at Dunsfold when she came to view some new social housing, apologising profusely for being late. On several occasions, I visited new built social and affordable houses across the borough. And I was very impressed with the standards, particularly in some of those housings. We joined Sophie, the Countess of Wessex, when she visited Changing Perceptions in Godalming High Street, which highlighted the activities of Meath Homes, which I used to visit many times years ago. And again, I arranged to visit Meath Homes so that I could meet the occupants that are there now in this wonderful charity, which I know is supported by Councillor Penny Rivers, our new Deputy Mayor. It has, as already been said, difficult to raise funding for any charities across the borough, and many in our community are struggling with energy costs and inflation. And of course, there are the horrific events coming out of Ukraine. As is our nature, right across the borough, many people have previously opened their doors and wallets to make them welcome. However, I'm very pleased to say that my reception last night, which many of you here attended, raised £450 for those charities. My thanks to all those who attended my final event. I will always remember the jazz choir performing in the public gallery there. They actually made as much noise as councillors in a meeting. It was amazing. Now, I'd like to thank all the Waverley staff, councillors and volunteers for their tremendous efforts in supporting those that need help right across our community in these changing times. Now, a large part of a mayor's role is meeting people and supporting organisations and volunteers that keep the community going. I would personally like to thank the team assisting me, as they were superb. So I could ask, please, Louise, Becky, Jenna and Alice, who have made sure that I was in the right place at the right time. So I do have a gift for each of you. You'd like to bring them through, please. Louise, where are you? Oh, sorry, the other side. Louise, thank you for your support. Now we go to the flowers. It's over here somewhere. Right, Jenna, please come forward. And then finally, of course, but not least in any way, Becky, if you'd like to come forward, please.
My pleasure.
As is apparent, I have been both frustrated and happy with the past year. Throughout this time, my final thanks goes to my mayoress wife, Jackie Keane. Throughout the highs and lows, she has been by my side, encouraging and supporting me. So thank you, Jackie, and please enjoy my gift to you as a token of my thanks. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rubini, and thank everybody for all they've done. I now move on to item 7 on the agenda, the minutes of our last meeting. They have laid on the table for the requisite time. Do any councillors have any problems with them, or do I have your agreement to sign them?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. The next one is Mayor's announcements that I shall actually stand for this time, but in future I may take the easy way and sit. Since my election, I've been very busy. Jokes sometimes work, yeah. And I've much to tell you, and there are many things I want to tell you about that are relevant to my mayoral year. So I apologize if I will be keeping you from the reception. However, my civic service will be held on the afternoon of Sunday, the 26th of June, in St. Thomas on the Bourne Church in Farnham. The curate, the Reverend Sandy Clark, who kindly did prayers for us this evening, has agreed to perform the ceremony, and I am very fortunate that the Right Reverend Christopher Herbert, former Bishop of St. Albans and a resident of this area, has agreed to give the address. I'm inviting the biggest selection I can of people that work voluntarily for our community. And I would really be pleased if as many councillors as possible could attend, not just to swell the numbers, but to really meet and give thanks to some of the hardworking people who hopefully will actually enjoy seeing a bunch of councillors. A rare group of people. During my mayoral year, I shall not only have the support of my wife, Gillian, my mayoress, but also, as you have seen, my deputy councillor, Penny Rivers, and her consort, Paul. Penny and I have both been town mayors at least twice before and are looking forward to using our experience to the benefit of the borough. I believe we make a compassionate but perhaps formidable team. I am not appointing a specific mayor's chaplain this year, as I want to be as inclusive as possible, and I'm going to invite ministers from the various population centres across our borough to say prayers for us at council. I've given considerable thought to deciding which charities to choose for my mayoral year. I am keen to improve mental health, and I also wanted to focus on local organisations that help and support those who are disadvantaged by this or have felt neglected by mainstream society. I am particularly interested in helping young people who have problems like autism. But I also did not want to neglect those adults who, through no fault of their own, are disadvantaged. I also, again, wanted to try and be inclusive and spread things across the borough. So I have chosen to support Creative Response Arts in Farnham in the west and the Jigsaw Trust School in Dunsfold Park in the east. I'd like to tell you very quickly, I won't keep you long from your refreshments, a little bit about each of these charities. Creative Response is currently helping about 75 adults a week in their Farnham centre. It's a small local charity offering arts-based workshops for those experiencing mental health, learning and physical difficulties. And their central Farnham studios, practicing artists work collaboratively with participants from across the borough, guiding and facilitating the creation of paintings, drawings, sculpture and ceramics. Passionate advocates of the benefits of the arts for mental health and well-being, the Creative Response team are proud to have been serving the community for over 25 years. They are now looking to expand their new local partnership and collaboration opportunities in the borough. Recently, they've made plans for a series of outreach workings through UCA, and they're actively exploring how the charity can further increase its reach, perhaps by restarting a satellite offer in Cranley, as well as looking to how Creative Response, which currently supports over 18s only, might also serve young people. Which moves neatly on to my second charity, Jigsaw Trust. Was set up in 1999 and is based in Dunsfold Park in Cranley. The trust manages the Jigsaw Cabas School, which supports 80 pupils aged 4 to 19. Jigsaw's vision is that autistic people should be enabled to live a life that gives them the opportunity to reach their potential. Sadly, autism is a lifelong development disability affecting someone's perceptions and interactions with the world. And it looks as though many of them will need some form of assistance for the rest of their life. However, Jigsaw is focusing on increasing their independence and developing communication skills and supporting improved social inclusion. They too are considering expanding their services to a wider age group. And I hope that both of these small charities in our borough can find some synergy in their efforts to help others. Representatives of both these charities are here tonight, and we will, of course, be organising fundraising events. But if you felt like starting the ball rolling this evening, I'm sure they would be happy to oblige. I apologise again for the length of this speech, but there was much to be said at the beginning of my year. I intend to set up a mayor's diary on the Waverley website so that you will be spared too much mayoral verbosity at future meetings, which doubtless will keep you a little bit more happy with what I have to say. I thank the officers for their help in organising this evening and in anticipation of their cheerful assistance throughout the forthcoming year. I thank my mayoress for supporting me for the whole of my life, traipsing around the world with me, uncomplaining, and I'm sure she will enjoy our sojourns around the borough, which is a beautiful place and we thoroughly love. Again, thank you for electing me. I will do my very best. Before I go on to appointments for committees, as mayor, I would like to welcome Councillor David Munro back to the council. As a friend, yes, mayors are allowed to have friends. I've checked. I welcome David, who was my guide and mentor in 2005 when I first started thinking about joining the council. We were co-councillors for 8 years, and I know what he's like. So, Councillor Potts, you have a treat in store. You know, we both went our separate ways, and yet here we are back again. Reminds me of that lovely phrase, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose, which for those of you that don't speak German, translates roughly as the more things change, the more they are the same. We'll move on to item 9, which is appointments to committees. I've got a whole load I have to read out to you here, I'm afraid. Councillors, the report setting out the overall review of political proportionality for the council has been tabled before you, along with the annex showing the group leaders' nominations for appointments to the committees. Please note there is a typo in paragraph 4.4 of the report, which should read 31.58, not 21.58, and Councillor Darcy should be listed under the membership of Services ONS committees. There are 3 recommendations for you, councillors. Firstly, to note the proportional allocation of seats, which is a mathematical function performed by the officers. Secondly, to agree the nominations to council committees, which are put forward by your respective group leaders, and to the appeals and nominations to the appeals panel and the Surrey County Council local committees. Councillors, is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much, councillors. We've got to the end of an interesting meeting this evening, so I now declare the meeting closed.
Please rise whilst the mayor leaves the chamber. Please remain in the chamber just for a few minutes until the mayor is ready to receive you in the Borough Hall.